Hello, everybody. Finally get to do my presentation. It's kind of emotional for me. Personally and for the community. I recently lost my recently lost my daughter 7 months ago. But my daughter's name was Charisse Longknife. She was 25 years old, and she had a 5-year-old son who I am now raising. Hello, my friends. My name is Dennis Longknife Jr. I am an Assiniboine from our ancestral homelands of the Fort Belknap Indians, from the Bad Moccasin clan and the Bear clan in Canada. I was never taught what my mother's side of the family was. My great grandfather's name was Longknife, who you see there on the left. Don't tell me where he got that ostrich feather or whatever that is in his hat. I have no idea. But that was taken about 1879 or 1860, I believe. My great grandfather's name was Longknife, and that's where all our relatives got their names from. Him and his family at that time. On my dad's side of the family, we were all hunters, and we still practice our subsistence hunting and harvest big game, mostly deer, elk, antelope, and buffalo. On my mother's side, that I do know of, they were horsemen, and they owned horse ranches in the foothills of the Little Rocky Mountains. Fort Belknap is home to two distinct tribes, the Grovons, who we call a Hanin people, Dakota. They're located 43 miles south of the border, and the reservation is just over 700,000 acres with 8,000 enrolled members. Go ahead. Originally, we secured a BIA Tribal Resiliency Grant in 2015. Setbacks began immediately after we got that funding. So that's what my main presentation is on the challenges and setbacks. First of all, I was for the first 2 years of the grant, I worked part-time. My supervisor would not hire me full-time for this position. She didn't understand the importance of having a climate change program and trying to develop one at the time. So it took a long time. It took 3 years before I finally became they changed me to full-time. Once that happened, the program really took off. I developed a climate advisory committee made up of tribal program managers throughout our tribal structure and community members. We have 4 communities on our reservation. I also hired a climate consultant to help us with the plan. And they were called the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, based out of Missoula. They're a nonprofit. So beginning in 2018, we began having a series of climate advisory meetings to brainstorm the impacts for our community. Some of the tribal programs would not attend the meetings, so we had to go door to door. And this proved to be the best way to collect information because, as you probably know, some of your meetings, there's certain programs that never come to the meetings. So we took it upon ourselves to bug them until they gave us information. What else? We continued having 2 more meetings and a climate change training workshop for people that wasn't too familiar with climate change, all the way through 2019. During this time, our plan was beginning to take shape. Another couple of setbacks happened when our climate consultant, the CLLC, had staff turnover, and they had it twice. One to the project officer I was working with, and one with their supervisor. And it really slowed down the process because we had to retrain the people to get them up to speed. And after that happened, we ended up running out of funding. So we had to shut down our climate change program for a year and a half. At this time, yeah, the plan sat on the shelf and collected dust. So finally, in the spring of 2021, our tribe was selected for BIA funding again. So we continued developing the plan, started taking every obstacle that was handed to us. Call it resiliency. At this time, our consultants wanted to continue collecting more data and plan more meetings. However, I put a halt to it because I figured we had enough information already, so I just wanted to go for approval through our tribal council. So on April 24th, 2023, our draft climate change adaptation plan was officially approved. Up here, you can see some of the impacts. This was a perennial stream that was running on a reservation up in the upper left-hand corner, and you can see it was dry here. We had a series of severe droughts in 2017, 2020, and 2021. And it was strange because after the fall came, we had a severe snowstorm in October, and when it melted, we had flooding, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner. And that's a Fort Bellup agency, that community on the lower part of the picture where that flooding is. And the lower left-hand corner is one of the wildfires we had a couple of years ago on our mountains. We have a unique mountain range. It's surrounded by prairie, and it's called Island Mountains up in northern Montana. There's several mountain ranges up there, and they're all called Island Mountains. The old-timers call it the Fur Cap Mountains. But anyway, we had a wildfire that started from a propane tank that exploded at a house. And then the fire quickly consumed the whole north side of our mountains. And then you can see these people never seen airplanes before, let alone an air tanker flying over the roofs of their houses, dropping tar and water. That's one of our community's powwow grounds right there. And then right behind it, you can't see it in the picture, there's rodeo grounds. And across the street is the new trading post. But anyway, call it luck by nature or Mother Nature helping us. When that fire reached this community, it slowed down and then it went the other way, completely saving this little town here called Lodgepole. And like I said, we had a snowstorm earlier, and that's a picture of the snowstorm we had. A bunch of heavy, wet snow. And it snapped about 200 power poles from the heavy weight of the snow. Some of the houses were without power for about up to 2 weeks. But then by then our disaster emergency services crew kicked in, and they were out going house to house, elders first, getting them food and water and taking them to their medical appointments. In the spring of 2023, we plan to install 2 weather stations on our tribal lands. They're called Mesonet weather stations, and they collect atmospheric data such as temperature, relative humidity, rainfall, solar intensity, and wind speeds, barometric pressure. They even record lightning strikes. You can even program a camera that's on that weather station so it could track your vegetation health and forage production in the area. And it also has soil probes at 4 different soil depths so it can record the moisture in the soils. Right now, we're just coming off of a severe drought I was telling you about, and the moisture depth is only 4 inches. We go farther than 4 inches and we got dry dirt. When we usually have their soil moisture goes down to 8 inches. But one of the hurdles we ran into on this project, because it was supposed to have been installed in April of this spring, was a BI. We forgot about the BIA, and there's a NEPA process that has to happen to get approval to get this made. It was on tribal land, but it was on tribal landowner land. So tribal trust and landowner land is two different things, I guess, to the BIA. So we had to put a halt on this. So now we're looking for two new sites that are near these sites we already identified, because they're in a spot where this project will work. So anyway, next. In the springtime, our fire management department performed cultural burns in our communities to reduce wildfire threats where brush may cause problems. Since the forestry program and the fire management department were working together, we started brainstorming ways to increase our forest health. They were already doing prescribed burning, piling, and burning slash. So we went after some climate grant money to continue these projects. Okay. And this is the project that we came to. It's called the Little Rocky Forest Resilience Project. The main goal was to conduct thinning to improve our forest health by removing sick trees and opening up the canopy to inhibit crown fires. Removing deformed trees, thinning slash by piling and burning, and finally using prescribed fire to remove ground fuels that promote wildfires. The benefits of the forest by carbon recycling, the forest floor litter that intercepts and limits precipitation from reaching the forest floor, and in turn it enriches the soils that spur new native plant growth. In that picture, you can see a guy pointing there. That's Chet Gladstone. He's a BIA forester for our reservation. He's a Blackfoot by nature, but he works for our tribe. And he's showing the regional BIA forester where the thinning site is across the valley there. And that mountain, that highest mountain up there, is called Eagle Child. It's a spiritual, cultural site where our ancestors and our elders still go up there to fast. These mountains have had a history of wildfires. When we counted the fire scars in the tree rings, it seems like every 60 years we'd have a fire go through this area. But in the last 70 years, like everywhere else, fire suppression halted that. So we're slowly getting, well, let me back up a little bit. We had a historic fire in the 1930s, and it consumed over half our forest resources at that time, killing all of our old trees. So all you see now coming up are 60-year-old trees, and they're all thicker and they're coming up really thick. So that's why we got an active thinning program to reduce our catastrophic effects if a fire came through. And then that picture on the lower right is I took a close-up of the opening up the canopy after that trees were thinned in there, and you can see some native plants coming up. Arrowleaf balsam root is one of the first ones that come up in the spring, and then I don't know. I never included another picture, but a couple of weeks later, there was a whole field full of that plants coming up through there. That picture up in the upper right is a college student who we got to work for us for a while in the summertime. He's collecting soil moisture data with that soil probe he has in his hand. Go ahead. In the beginning, we partnered with a BIA forester and worked with the Onionakala College and CLLC. In June of 2021, we began recruiting tribal members for the thinning crew, but we ran into unexpected delays there too. because we lacked experienced trained sawyers, and the available ones that we had all went firefighting. Because you know how the West blew up lately, and seems like from June to August, all our available people, young people, are all out fighting fires. So anyway, in August, as this fire season winded down, we had a chainsaw training so we could get more tribal members trained to saw these trees. So in late August, we finally got a tribal thinning crew put together. We had a ragtag crew of about 12 thinners. We call them the Dirty Dozen. But we rarely ever got that many to work all at once. Most days we only had 3 to 7 thinners on the site. And as the Lurfer project drug on through September, after very little progress was made on a 100-acre unit, we had to decide to let them go and hire a contract crew to finish up our thinning. Outside non-tribal crew. It didn't take them long, and in November, the crew finished up on 70 acres of thinning trees, and it only took them a couple of weeks to do that. These are pictures of me at the site. Upper right-hand corner, the tallest guy there, he's a natural resource instructor for our Ani Lakota College. And the lady on the right there, she was our project officer from the Center for Large Landscape Conservation. She later left. She was a great worker for us and helped us with a lot of our projects getting started. Her name was Rebecca Waters. She also worked in Mongolia. And these two lower pictures of some of our tribal members thinning trees up in the mountains. One of the obstacles for the project right off the bat was access to the project site. You can see in the upper top middle part of the map there, you can see the edge of the community of Hayes. And that red line there is the road we had to take to get to the site where it's in green. That road, we had to go over the mountains, taking a Jeep trail over the top of the mountains, and the road was rough going all the way through. Took us a total of 1.5 hours to get to and from the work site every day. So we had to change to 10-hour work days for our sawyers. I think some days were 12 hours, so they could get some work done. But like I said, we lacked manpower. Some of the sawyers wouldn't even show up for work. Our tribe has drug and alcohol policy, and they don't tolerate anyone that has a bad UA. So a lot of our tribal members, sad to say, smoke grass, marijuana, and it shows up on our UA, so we can't even hire them. Forest resiliency in action. We monitor the project using drones and ground truthing. And drones, as you can see here, give you the opportunity to see the progress of your work in real time. What once was a thick sandus trees is now a manageable forest stand. And I don't think you can see it here, but if I zoomed in on this picture, you'd see thousands of little trees laying all over in there. Can't see them from this high up. Many of our tribal members continue our cultural practices of collecting and harvesting native plants such as peppermint, juneberry, they also call it serviceberry, chokecherry, turnip, and sage. One of the plans identified in our climate change adaptation plan was that has now been implemented is now called a feasibility study to assess restoring subalpine fir back into our mountains. Like I told you about that 1936 fire we had, I think it burnt up any remaining subalpine fir trees that we had in our mountains. And this tree is of high cultural value to our tribes because we use it for our ceremonies. Currently, we have to travel all the way over west, over by Mike's part of the country, to collect subalpine fir that we can use in our ceremonies. So. Part of this feasibility study, we already finished the first phase of it, and we didn't find any. We went up in the mountains for a couple of days looking for any remaining stands of fir trees and didn't find any. Our next phase is going to identify sites where we can use local seed stock, maybe from the nearby mountains, island mountains, and restore them. Go ahead. And there on the upper left-hand picture is a subalpine fir I took from a website. The rest of those plants are from our reservation. The peppermint, the sage, and wild turnip. One of our challenges in future projects is to restore the subalpine fir like I was telling you. I already talked to you. We need to work with our elders and so they can share their knowledge through storytelling with our children and our communities. And we try to capture some of that knowledge through elder interviews and elder questionnaires, which in turn strengthens our climate adaptation plan. So when you're working on your plan, always include the elders. When our community loses an elder, it's such a huge loss as their knowledge goes with them. Continued prayers for all our elders that we on wrapping up, have to develop new partnerships to collaborate on climate projects, continue with community meetings and perform education and outreach, help our community be better prepared for extreme weather events to become more resilient, and continue working with our Ani Nakota College and other universities on climate projects. And most importantly, stay resilient.
Good afternoon. Skuktamju. So we started our climate adaptation plan in 2013. It took us 5 years to get it done. The 5 years had to do a lot with getting the majority of our tribal members to buy into the plan. So a little bit of introduction. Water's life. So go ahead and advance it. Okay, so our nation is it's about 3,000 acre feet of real estate. It's 65 miles west of Tucson, Arizona, along the U.S.-Mexican border. We have 38,000 members. They live in 66 communities, and our nation is divided up into 11 political districts. Okay, go ahead. So I'm going to read. So as we adapt to global warming, we will face the uncertainty of exactly what, where, and when a climate crisis is going to happen. However, we can identify our weaknesses by remembering and documenting past extreme weather events and threats to our health and safety. Go ahead. So what I would suggest right off the bat, if you do not have a plan, is to prioritize your adaptation strategies. And that's what we were doing today. Find out what it is, get a consensus from your group or your people, your tribe, wherever you work with, and ask them, what would you want to save? What do you want to save? But I will tell you right now, a lot of them are going to say us, the people, and then everything else. So you'll have to prioritize your adaptation strategies. You may want to protect crucial infrastructure like clinics, hospitals, nursing homes, food distribution centers, sewer systems, fuel stations from flooding. In our case, we're constructing flood barriers, levees to protect our communities. Because although we live in a desert, there's no trees, there's no standing water. We do get water that comes in when it rains. That's the Vomri Wash, that's the village up there. And so it cost us $2 million just to build this levee, but it works. So we had a flood just this year, and it was about a 50-year flood, and it brought in a lot of water, and it actually pushed the water back into the Vomri Wash, and the success was good. We went out there and we saw it from the beginning to the end, and so it costs money to protect your people if they don't want to move. But the most important thing about this is that we're forming a relationship with, we'll talk about that later, with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, because if you build a structure like this, you want FEMA to certify it. If they certify it, they will fight. It's called flood fighting. They will come and they will fight that flood for you, repair the berm, the levee. So always remember, get it certified. Next slide. So according to today, the little lesson we had, adaptation efforts, they can save lives. And without proper planning, that's the whole thing about planning, is that if you don't do it right, you're just going to waste time and money. And the people are going to be in the same position they were in the beginning. Nothing really happened. You just went through the process, and they're not going to like it because you're not going to see protection. And so a well-thought-out adaptation plan will help you survive in a more hostile and hotter environment, because that's where we're going. That's where we're heading to because of climate change, global warming. And so, in January 2018 is when the council decided that it's time to vote on it, and they voted on it. But the most important thing is that when they voted on it, it was a consensus of all the work that we did for those 5 years. And so the first thing I asked the communities when I went to the 66 communities because they have community meetings. Then I went to the 11 districts and asked to have district meetings. And then I went to all the departments and programs that were going to be vital in our program, in our climate adaptation plan. And we had those meetings. So I went to a lot of meetings. That's why I know that what we're doing is a consensus of what the people want. The first question that I asked everybody when I go to a meeting, I say, do you believe in climate change, global warming? And then there's some that don't. I raise your hand, and then they raise. There's some that don't. So what I say is that, and the ones that did not raise your hand, don't worry, we're going to protect you as well. And then they get upset. Next. So as a people, as Autumn, we agreed that our climate drivers are rising temperatures, drought, and extreme flooding. And that what we wanted to do was to protect our people, our health, and our water. Those are the three things that we're concentrating on. That's what we do. That's what it's all about for us. Because we know that we're going to protect the people. And I'm going to take a small intermission right now to let Nikki and to let you, Shasta, release the Kraken. You can put that out now. Yeah. Finally, I told them when are we going to release it? And they said, why? And I said, because I'm going to a conference, and you didn't let me do it before. And so my boss, the chairman, said, release the Kraken. So you guys can release it to the. So people, it's available for anybody now. Okay, so you can, next slide. That's how complex it can get. So, but remember this, adaptation planning for only the responsible community members in your area or homeowners is not all inclusive, because those are the ones that are going to show up, and they're the ones that you're going to talk to. But remember that this will exclude those who are poor, homeless, have drug and alcohol addiction, or have pre-existing conditions, including diabetes, long COVID, and obesity. So we're always trying to modify our plan, and so to meet our physical and mental needs, because it changes and we're changing, and our situation changes, and new vectors come in. Somebody said that they just got introduced to the West Nile virus. Well, we got that too, but now we even have the Rocky Mountain tick fever, and then we're getting more mosquitoes because they're moving up because they think Arizona is the equator, and so they moved up with it. And so that's what so this is a very complex diagram because I showed it for the main purpose to show you how it can get complicated. This exercise we did today, everybody was saying, oh, that was hard, but look at that and try to figure it out. So anyway, I think that, so I know that we're going to talk about valley fever and heat stroke and skin cancer more with our clinic and our hospital because we're going to be out in the sun in 115-degree weather. I can tell you that I'm light-skinned right now, but my genetics, when I work out outside in the sun, I'll turn dark. That's my protection. That's my genes. But I can still get cancer, skin cancer. So the next slide. So this is what it's all about. Our plan is not to save everything. It's to protect the people. So our plan is an emergency operational plan. That's all it is. And what an emergency operational plan is to protect people. That's what it is. And so what we do is we use the National Incident Management System, NIMS. And you can get that comes out of FEMA. And so what we do is that we use their procedure, and then we use our multi-hazard mitigation plan, and then we also use our emergency operation plan. Those three things tell us what to do in an emergency. An incident commander is appointed, usually coming out of Department of Public Safety, because they're first responders. And then people like me will give support for GIS, map making. We have a lot of survey equipment. And so we do the map making, and then like the education department provides the cooling towers and the storage centers for the food distribution. So every department has a role to play that they normally do anyway. That is their mission statement. That's what they do. Plus, they have a budget for it. So they can use their budget to buy stuff. So that was my plan, was to weasel in them. And they didn't even know that they were going to be part of the plan and spending their money. So sometimes they say, Selso, I think you what bamboozled us. And I go, nah, it's just the way it is. It wasn't on purpose. So the next one. Next slide. So, got to change papers. I had a professor, because I have to read. When I was younger, I could memorize this and just talk off the top of my head. But I can't because I have to read. I'll go be talking everywhere. I'll be like Mike. We'll be talking about stuff. Or the Seattle Seahawks, whether they're going to win. But I had one professor that I thought it was cool. He'll be reading from his script, and then he'll just throw it and go like this. So I'm doing that. So our primary concerns are flood and extreme heat, but not so much the heat. 800 years ago, our people experienced a hyperthermal climate. We suffer for 90 years, really hot weather, and yet we survived. We are still here. So we have resilience. And so that means that we can suffer really extreme heat. Whatever's happening now, we can tolerate it. But I can tell you, when I go outside of my house and it's 115-degree weather, I don't stay out there too long. I come out, but I throw the little ones out and tell them, get out of the house. And that's a procedure we call, most people do that. I don't know the tribes. We call it burning. Burn your kids. We all do that to everybody. What we do is we get them. They're young. And say, go play outside. No, it's too hot and everything. Say, go play outside. And eventually we send them outside. They get used to it. They get acclimated. They get burned. They come in and they're real red. Send them out the next day. They get a little bit more. And then eventually they play outside and get good. They're acclimated. And they say, they didn't know that. I didn't know that. My grandmother said, I said, how come I like to be on the sun? He goes, gosh, we threw you out there all the time. That was training. So what happened, so we can endure the hot. But as you know, the rising temperatures are heating the oceans. This action increases atmospheric moisture, resulting in extreme rain events and flooding on land. We almost lost 2 villages when Tropical Storm Rosa came on land in 2018. The earthen dam at Alijuk was in danger of collapsing from storm water. And here it is. All that yellow stuff up there where that red thing is, the red rectangle, all that stuff is water. And it dropped, because we do have 40 weather stations on our reservation that we built ourselves. And what we did is we recorded in that drainage 6 inches of rain in 6 hours. It may not sound a lot, but if that management, that watershed is big, and so all of that is just water sitting there. And so what we did is we used our climate adaptation plan that was adopted in January of the same year, and we using that plan, we used sandbags to add 5 additional feet of freeboard, and we prevented the stormwater from destroying the dam and the village. So that's where I'm in there somewhere because I was directing traffic. And of course, if you were there, you would say, he's not even dirty. And I say, yeah, I'll just go this way, go that way, take it up there. Because we were the engineers in charge. So we stood there, go over there, put it over there. That's the best way. If you're going to take control of a situation, be the one that stands there and goes, yeah, that goes over there. Yeah, that goes over there. All right, so next. So we're participating in the Army Corps Tribal Partnership Program and FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program, BRIC. So but you know, if people know this or if you're familiar with it, is that trying to get federal dollars to build flood reduction structures is a long and tedious process. You might as well not even start because they won't give it to you because you don't fit the cost-benefit ratio. And what that is a cost-benefit analysis says that if it takes a lot of money to protect a small community, like we have a community, villages of less than 50 people, or you live in a rural area in southern Arizona, a ranch, FEMA and the Corps of Engineers will not even, you'll get like a 0.4, point something, but you're not going to rate. You have to get from 1 to 0, 0 to 1, you got to get something over 1.1 or something for them to look at it. But if you live on the coast in Florida, you get the full benefits. But rural areas and tribal nations do not get the consideration. It's just the way it is. But FEMA told me, the BRIC program told me that they're going to try to manipulate that cost-benefit ratio. And the first thing I told them, well, why didn't you manipulate it a long time ago? But, that's FEMA. So in FY 2024, in January, actually I'm going in December, I'm going to ask the Tribal Council for $16 million to build 2 flood structures in 2 communities. And there they are, Alichuk and Coat. And because those, you would say, why do those people live in the floodplain? Okay, this is the story real quick. We used to live in the mountains where they have fractured rock hydrology and we drank from springs. And then we will come down in the summer and when the monsoons came and then we'll flood farm and we'll get our fields and then we'll get our food and then we'll go back up. When the BRL, even they first came in, they built wells for us, regular wells they built. And everybody, all the tribal people moved to those wells. But the only problem, they were in floodplains. So now all the communities that we have are in floodplains. So I always tell them, go home. And they say, where's home? I said, up in the mountains. They always say, how come you always say that? I said, because that's where we're from. Because they always say, my home is right here. And go, No, we used to be up there on the mountain right there. So we forgot about our culture as well. So I'm asking for $60 million, and the council asked me, you know, they were talking to me, they said, $60 million? And I go, yeah, 2 projects at $7.5 million. And they said, that's a lot of money. And I told them, we have gaming. We have 4 casinos. So you're going to talk about gaming and you can protect our people? So I guilted them. That's what it is. If you ever see me in council, yeah, I guilt them. I even say I faint. I even go, I don't feel good. They say, oh, Selso's sick, and yeah, I can vote for him. Vote. So don't do that. Because one time I didn't faint, but I kind of slipped, and they called the medics. They had to postpone the council for the vote, and so I said, that didn't work. So don't try too much acting. But anyway, it's not fun. But what I tell you that you can use for when you talk to your people, it's not about now. We're living now. We got what we need. It's for the ones that are not here. How much of a world do we want to live, for them to live in? And we want it to be safe and healthy, because that is our legacy. And if you don't believe that, think about how we've advanced from 500 years ago to we're healthier. Tribal people are healthier. Not all of us, but we're getting to the point where we're starting to live a better life. Our standard of living has gone up a little bit, enough to have stuff and to appreciate it. So the next slide. So, and that's how we used to get water, because we lived in the mountains and there was no well, so we used to. Everybody had to go get water, had to get one of those and go get it. I remember doing it as well when I was young, because I'm 71, so in the 50s, when I was still young, I used to go with my grandmother, and I used to carry the biggest one. I don't know why, but anyway. But I ended up, so here's what I got to say. This is the one the message. So we, American Indians and humans, but American Indians, we have survived the physical and emotional intrusion into our lives, and we're still here. That's why we're here. We have learned to adapt. We have learned to reduce risk to our ways of life. We've improved our survival skills, because that's why we're still here, without then improving those survival skills. As far as global warming, we need to see how the Juatkacham, Mother Earth, is reacting to the additional heat. We don't know the extent of what's going to happen. I think Mike brought that up about the models. When I was with Fish and Wildlife Service in 1996, I was the representative from the southern area of Arizona Fish and Wildlife Service, Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. I used to attend meetings about climate change. In 1996, Fish and Wildlife Service they knew about it, and they were moving to deal with the modeling about it. I never knew about that. But since 1996, we were going to all these meetings about climate change, and now it's there. Now it's here. It's always been here. We just didn't pay attention since the 1800s, when we started burning fossil fuel. We started burning up ourselves. But basically, what I think is that, or how I feel sometimes, is that we don't know how much our mother can take. We don't know the threshold. And I think Mike said it, that some of the projections, I think from where we were studying from the models that we use, and there's a whole bunch of models out there, but the models, they put about 136 models together, and that's the IPCC, and they came out that said that in 2040 will be the first benchmark to see how bad it's getting. But I can tell you right now, it's moved up to 2030. And even now, I mean, it's like, forget those models, because it's happening at a rate that we can't comprehend. And how Mother Earth is going to react to it, We don't know. So we're living in this area we can't apply science to it as much as we think we can because it's all new. It's like we're going into the experiment. It's a big old experiment and we're going to it and the government is throwing money at the university saying, figure it out. And what we're saying, the people that understand are saying, well, quit using fossil fuel. That's so easy to think about. But I think that, so what happens is that when you do all this stuff, and we know it's going on, you have to make plans to minimize risk to your health and your safety for where you're at. Because everything changes. You can't do the same thing like where we live. Or maybe you can, because it's what I saw, or what I hear is everybody's going to be affected by drought. Everybody's going to be affected by rising temperatures. Everybody's going to be affected by water availability and water quality. And so, or even, water availability. And then other things are, your area, vectors and mosquitoes, everything else. So, but we have the big three, all of us, and flooding. I didn't know that you guys flooded here. I thought, wow, this is the ocean right there. Then I go, oh, the ocean right there. Well, I figured it out. When I saw all the green, it rains here. So anyway, so what I can tell you is that you'll need to change your plans as the weather changes. That's why it's a living document. It's never going to be the same. You're going to change it as much as you can. That's what we're doing. When I go back, I have ideas that I need to do. Go back to council. They're going to have to do another resolution. It's always good to get a tribal resolution if you're doing this, because that means that your nation or the tribe you represent believes in what you're doing and they support it. So that's a good thing. But here is the deal. Our primary objectives as human beings is to survive. But not just survive, but to thrive and live in the world that we've created. So think about that. It's up to us. So make that adjustment. So I think I'm done. I don't know when they're going to play that video. The video person's gone. Yeah, so we can do that later. Yeah, we'll let Randi go. Yeah.
First, I just wanted to say thank you for making time for and doing the blessing and the prayer earlier. I know that our schedule is compromised because of that, but I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys doing that and giving me a little extra time to get some things in. Is my presentation able to be pulled up, or do I do that? If you just show me how to do it. Is this forward? Okay. Oh, that's yours. That's Selso's slide. Okay. I'm going to go very quickly through most of my slides and end up on the last few slides because a lot of what I will present is maybe repeat information, but I did want to just share a few examples of what we're doing and what's going on in Alaska. We have had 5 indigenous communities ask the UN to investigate the United States' failure to live up to legal obligations. In this is an example here of village relocation and protection, and the trust responsibility that the federal government has is being compromised. This is Kivalina, Alaska. Some of the other folks who were here from Alaska live, well, actually my village is close to Kivalina, and my village is native village of Point Hope. It looks very similar to this, but we have long strips of little lands with lagoons and then the ocean on the other side that are just eroding away, and as sea level rise compromise our villages. They've already, my village has had to move once in the 70s and has a high potential of needing to move again. This is another example, Newtok, Alaska. They're experiencing severe flooding, and homes are literally falling into the ocean. There's pictures all over the internet of homes that are just dangling on the shoreline. So it's real for all of us, but it's very real for these people who can't even have a home to live in. There is a film that was produced by Patagonia about Newtok. It's short and it's very good. And if you have this presentation, you can find the link to watch that video. I did 2 case studies. One was in Southeast Alaska from the Central Council of Tlingit Haida. And they did planning and then actions that can be grouped into 3 categories. So actions for immediate implementation, and then the medium term, and then the long term. And preparing for continued and accelerated change is not something new, but a continuation of the holistic natural resource and culturally driven approach. They have 4 key next steps. I'm not going to read through these. Prioritizing, obviously, building community support for climate preparedness, incorporating preparedness into tribal government operations and policies, which we've talked a lot about today, collaborating with surrounding communities in Southeast, and I'll challenge all of you later to go beyond your communities and collaborate with people maybe you didn't even think were appropriate collaborators. Or possible collaborators. The other case study that I wanted to share with you is Upper Snake River tribes. This is, they have done a slew of things, and they have a really great website too. You could just Google them and find everything you needed to know. This is the area here in most of Idaho. It goes into Oregon and a little bit into California there. Is that California? Yeah. Like I can't figure it out. I mean the southern part. There's Utah and California, right? What is it? Oregon? Oh, there's Oregon. California's below Oregon. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm challenged, geographically challenged here. Anyways, obviously this is not all of the lands, because we all have the unceded lands that we all have, for eons and centuries, and shared and not have these geographic boundaries. But one thing that I wanted to teach you about was the last thing on the last slide, was that they're producing these climate resilience videos, and they have 4 tribes in their collective, and they've done one with each community in their collective, and each of these videos is an active link too. So they promoted climate adaptation planning efforts through the storytelling device. So I thought that was pretty cool and innovative. They also are doing a lot with their youth, and we've talked a lot about that. I've heard quite a few people doing this. They do career camps, summer lessons, field trips, and then, talking about the challenges. I've had a few conversations with folks today and yesterday about you develop all these amazing programs, but yet it's really hard to get the youth involved. There's so many things that are distracting to them. There's obviously, as we found today, a lot of struggles with depression, getting involved, feeling heard, feeling valued. So really working through a lot of those human needs for belonging with our youth is really the first step, because as you see, some of these were canceled. It's not maybe because of those reasons, but I think it could have definitely been a contributing factor. This is cool. This is not out yet. They are preparing a tribal resilience action database, and they're pulling together it's for all tribes, not just the tribes in their area. And it's going to be a collection, I believe, of all of climate adaptation plans and examples of how tribes are using them. So this could be a potential resource for everybody to contribute to that. Do you know more about it? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Cool. Well, good. I'm glad that you can be the expert on it. I'm just the messenger here. So, and then this is only applies to EPA grants and funding, but I don't know if do you guys have ETEPs down here? Yeah, I know. Well, this came from our partners at EPA, and they just really wanted me to emphasize that if you were to utilize your ETEPs, it actually just helps to alert them to how they can better help us. So even though it's kind of a crappy process, it does have a benefit in potentially alerting them to where our high needs areas are. And then this is just a slide that they also provided for us, a summary of some of our region's adaptation priorities, which mirror yours. What I really wanted to talk about mostly is some of the things that we haven't really hit on yet. And we have discussed so many wonderful things. We've talked about the issues, we've talked about finding solutions, we've talked about strategies and how your tribe can do that. And I wanted to just put out another strategy, and that is thinking of the bigger picture, right? So in any kind of detective work or anything, somebody wants to solve a crime, they're going to go back to the point of origin, right? You retrace your steps. We got all these big things happening, all these clues. Well, we have to find out really what caused it. And so a lot of what is causing this is this dependence on our fossil fuels, and just transitions is really transitioning away from those fossil fuel usage, but doing it in a way that provides the stability for our communities and provides an actual solution to some of those. So not going to read through this. You can also Google just transitions. Alaska, there's a group called Native Movement up in Alaska, and they do an annual or biannual summit for just transition work. And so if you're interested in this topic, look that up and maybe come up and see us in Alaska. Going also with this concept of just transitions, it also includes educating and being a part of change in our non-Indigenous partnerships. And so I think for so many years with the history that our people have faced and the traumas that we're still recovering from, and just our cultural norms of not wanting to cause a problem or be the squeaky wheel, right? We have that humility about us sometimes that I think is a challenge for us to really overcome in this day and age. We have to kind of find within ourselves this ability to roar and to be heard and to let people know that we're still here and that we have viable solutions. And so educating our non-Indigenous folks on some of these things. And the first one is hard. Climate change might not be the primary concern for us. We're dealing with other things, as we saw today. High suicide rates, things that are threatening our daily lives that distract us from this. We're also, I talked to folks very familiar with the concept of keeping us on the hamster wheel, right? There's these other federal agencies or state or whatever whoever is setting the rules, they want to keep us busy. And so we have to find ways to step back and stop that busyness. And so doing this bigger, broader policy type change work is really important in order for you to get your individual tribes' climate adaptation plans to be able to work. So otherwise, we're just keeping on that hamster wheel. We're just dealing with the situation that's coming up now without going to the bigger source of the problem. And then I just had a couple notes that aren't even in my presentation. I do have resources here. Looking at our partnerships, we talk a lot about our own climate adaptation plans and getting all of our tribes on board doing those. But if you already have an established plan, which a lot of you have really great plans and you're putting them to work, have you taken the time to look at state and other cities' climate adaptation plans? Do they incorporate Indigenous knowledge? Do they incorporate the care of the Indigenous communities around them? So reaching out to people around us. And then, really, I talked a little bit about this at an earlier comment, is really getting into those spaces where you can make those changes. And that is, a prime example is how I think it was two years ago in the fall, we talked about how Alaska experienced Typhoon Merbok, and it just took communities by surprise. And it was due to climate change and the warming of the ocean that created these typhoon situation all on the west coast of Alaska. Well, FEMA came in after it was all over, and they provided these documents to the people, which were Yupik and Inupiaq speakers, and they used an 80-year-old Russian-based translation to give these instructions on how they could potentially apply for relief from this typhoon. And it was gibberish. It was complete gibberish. And so now the company that they used, which I think was actually a California-based company, FEMA contracted with them. They have to pay FEMA back for the money that they used to create that false document. So getting into those spaces, thinking outside of the box to protect our own communities, use your linguists, figure out what is FEMA using to translate things to get to your community. I mean, and if they don't have that information, get them that information so your communities can be safe. I did want to say one more thing about youth, and that is youth and partnerships and thinking outside the box. I just wanted to share that our Region 10 RTOC is run very much like the rest of the RTOCs around the nation, but in 2016, we decided to break free from the mold, and we decided that our RTOC wanted to be its own nonprofit organization rather than be relegated to how EPA wanted us to run our program. And so we did that, and now we just got our 501c3 status in May, and we're able to now seek other funding and do other programming that's outside the scope of EPA work. So we're really excited about that. So think about all the possibilities. And I actually know that Region 8 is close on our heels on that, because I've been working with the folks down in Region 8 who are also going to be employing that model. So be an inspiration. Somebody wrote that earlier. I don't even know who it was, but be the inspiration, So thank you so much. That's all I got.